I cannot be silent.
Back when Eisenhower was the president, golf courses is where most of his time was spent. So I never really listened to what the president said, because in general I believed that the general was politically dead. But he always seemed to know when the muscles were about to be flexed, because I remember him saying something, mumbling something about a military-industrial complex.
As I have walked among the desperate, rejected, and angry young men, I have told them that Molotov cocktails and rifles would not solve their problems. I have tried to offer them my deepest compassion while maintaining my conviction that social change comes most meaningfully through nonviolent action. But they ask, and rightly so, what about Vietnam? They ask if our home nation wasn't using massive doses of violence to solve its problem, to bring about the changes it wanted. Their questions hit home, and I knew that I could never again raise my voice against the violence of the oppressed in the ghettos without having first spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government. For the sake of those boys, for the sake of this government, for the sake of the hundreds of thousands trembling under our violence, I cannot be silent.
Each one reach one, each one time.
I cannot be silent.
Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. Everyone must play a part. Everyone's got to go to work. Work for peace. Spirit say work.
I cannot be silent.
Empowering the body, mind, and spirit. This is We Cannot Be Silent with Phil Restino and Larry Pinckney.
Hello, folks. My name is Phil Restino, and this show here is called We Cannot Be Silent, and Larry Pinckney is our co-host, and tonight is our fourth time, Larry? Third time?
I think it
it's
is.
April.
Third or fourth, yeah.
Yeah.
It's April.
And the name of the show is We Cannot Be Silent, and we took that name from the Martin Luther King's Beyond Vietnam speech from April 4th, 1967, a year to the day before he was murdered in Memphis. And the thing that was happening then, Larry, was Martin Luther King was starting to come out strongly against the war in Vietnam. And as you know, war is a big money maker. You know, that's why we're still having them. And and here was a religious leader, and as well as a leader of the people in general, and he was taking on the military-industrial complex, which is hand in hand with the banking, you know, that pretty much controls everything. And I don't know, maybe we should get into this now or a little later on, but I'd like to talk about why there's been so much silence. As Martin Luther King said, there comes a time when silence is betrayal, and the second part of that statement that we never hear is, and that time has come for us in relation to Vietnam. But since the silencing of Martin Luther King, I've yet to see any of the religious leaders come out and speak out against these genocidal wars. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I think tonight there's probably some listeners who don't even know who the heck we are, Larry. So I wanted to pass it off to you first, and maybe you could tell a little bit about yourself for those of us, those folks who don't know of us. So I'm going to swing it over to you, Larry. Larry Pinckney, folks.
Okay. Well, I want to certainly say to everyone in the audience, and also to you, Dave, thank you for helping us get this program up and running. Apologize for our little beginning, but hey, you know, it's a little shaky, but it can only get better. My background is as follows, and I'll be very succinct. I am a veteran of the Black Panther Party. I am a editorial board member and columnist, national columnist with the national magazine online, The Black Commentator, www.blackcommentator.com. And I'm also an associate editor with Intrepid Report, which is www.intrepidreport.com. I am a former political prisoner in the United States, took my case to the United Nations from prison, won the case after years in prison, so the struggle goes on. I'm going to leave it at that. The bottom line is the struggle does go on, and as a matter of fact, in the conditions that we are in today, the situation that we are in today, are spawning terrible, terrible social and economic consequences for all of us, everyday people. When I say everyday people, I mean everyday black, white, brown, red, yellow people. Everyday people across the spectrum of the rainbow. And we have got to do something about it. As Phil was just saying, Phil Restino, we cannot be silent. Thus, the name of our program. We simply cannot. There comes a time when silence becomes complicity, and we must not be complicit in not only our own demise in this nation and throughout this nation, but in the demise of the planet. So having said that, I'll switch it back over to you, Phil, so you can give your intro as far as your background.
Oh, thank you, Larry. Well, myself, I'm just an unemployed accountant. I lost my job back in 2001 and ended up in Florida, where my family is, and here I am 10, 11 years later. I became a caregiver for my grandparents who needed help, and it was then that I had time to get on the internet and use it, and the internet was expanding, and I started to get information that I was not getting on the television and the car radio, and God bless this internet, man. I really think this is a real changer. And so I started finding out more and realizing, learning things I never knew. I didn't realize how ignorant I was, Larry, and that's ignorant from just not having known. There's ignorance.
Right, that's ignorant, but that's not stupid. That's ignorant. A totally different thing.
Exactly, and there's willful ignorance, where the information is presented to a person and that person doesn't want to know, calls you a name and tells you to get lost, and then they can go about guilt-free, and well, folks like you and I, Larry, we're presented with some reality, and if it's an injustice, we, whatever reason, can't seem to turn away and ignore it, because with knowledge comes a responsibility. And so, for me, the George Bush's war was starting up, and I just could not believe the television build-up, and we've got to go get those bad guys, wanted dead or alive, and it was just blowing my mind. So I got involved in the anti-war movement, and then in 2005 found out about Veterans for Peace. I saw this fellow, Mike Ferner of Veterans for Peace, give a speech in Washington, D.C., calling for the impeachment of George Bush. This was in June of 2005, after it was revealed publicly, the Downing Street memo, which was smoking gun proof that the British and American leaders, Bush and Blair, conspired to lie to the people about imminent threat of weapons of mass destruction they knew was not there. And when that came out, I was outraged, and so was the Veterans for Peace. They were standing up and publicly calling for, and rightfully so, the impeachment of George Bush. And that's what got me to join Veterans for Peace. I had to first call them and ask, and mention that I'm not a war veteran. I was in during peacetime. Would I still qualify? And they said yes. No matter when and where you served, whether it was in war or peacetime, you are a veteran and you qualify for Veterans for Peace. And so I've been with them since 2005, Larry, and here we are in 2012, and there's more war now than there ever was. And That's right. So the struggle continues. I was naive in a lot of ways. I thought when I brought this information out to the different veterans groups, the actual war veterans, the guys that had been to war, in the American Legion and the VFWs, that they would not let happen to this generation of young people that what happened to them. And I was quite naive, because when I brought this information to their attention, and even to this very day, I'm turned away. And it's that old brainwashing. If you criticize the war, you're you're harming the troops, and there's no bigger betrayal, Larry, than knowing that these troops are being sent to die on a lie, and then not speaking out about it, but rather continuing to wave the flag and cheerlead them. And I hope to write a column for Memorial Day, something to that effect. But so here I am in Florida, still living in Grandpa's house, thank God, and we do our weekly anti-war demonstrations for 7 years now. They were started by my girlfriend, Kathy, who heads up the Code Pink chapter here, Women for Peace. And every Thursday night, Larry, we're out there and we hand out flyers and DVDs about, the 9/11 truth, because, hey, the big lie is 9/11, and that's the whole war on terror. And we go right to the truth wherever it takes us. And so, as you can see, I got no problem filling up airtime here, so... What's new in your column, Larry? The column in Black Commentator is called Keeping It Real with Larry Pinckney, and Intrepid Report is also his weekly column, and I can't recommend enough taking the time to hop on those sites and read Larry's weekly columns. And so, Larry, what are you writing about this week?
Well, Phil, sort of to segue right in with what you just finished talking about, and that is the wanton and blatant destruction and killing that people are killing and being killed at the direction of none other than the United States government. And I don't care whether people try to wrap themselves in a flag or wrap themselves in a dashiki. The bottom line is that it is wrong. And we are allowing our young people, our young men and women, to get caught up in this machine as nothing more than essentially cannon fodder. And we get behind some so-called people's candidate, and what happens? The same thing. So my column this week, I began it in this, I'm talking about the column in Black Commentator. The name of the column, blackcommentator.com. The name of the column this week, the column is always called Keeping It Real, but the specific name for this week is, if you like stealth bombers, you'll love Barack Obama. Again, if you like stealth bombers, you'll love Barack Obama. And I began it by simply quoting from Frederick Douglass. You know, Frederick Douglass said something very similar to what you said. He said that you find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have the exact measure of the injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them, unquote. That was Frederick Douglass who said that. And when we look at our situation today, look at the fact that the corporate stream media, ABC, CBS, Fox, PBS, all of them, they're corporate, they're what they call them. So they are corporate stream because they're owned lock, stock, and barrel by the corporations. Of course, PBS is very clever. They say that, you know, they're just donations. Right. Free donations? Get them, please. Anyway, the bottom line is, you know, a corporate sponsor. Same thing. Anyway, the bottom line is this. When we turn on our televisions, we turn on the radios, all we get is hogwash. We get lies, we get distractions, people talking about Oprah Winfrey's hairdo. I don't care about Oprah Winfrey's hairdo or Sarah Palin's hairdo. I don't care, you know, who's zooming who. I care about, and we all need to care about, everyday black, white, brown, red, and yellow people, economically and socially. We need to care about the fact that the economy, contrary to the corporate myth, the economy is getting worse for everyday people. As a matter of fact, the latest figures do not even include those people who have been unemployed for more than a half a year. And what does that tell you? I mean, but it's getting better? That's absurd. That's utterly ridiculous. And then we have foreclosures, millions of foreclosures, and this is increasing. The bottom line again is what? The only way this is going to stop is that we change the system. Getting back to the column specifically that I just started talking about, Barack Obama and the stealth bomber. The reason I compare Barack Obama to the stealth bomber, let me give a little quick history of the stealth bomber. Other people know it as the B-2 bomber, which, by the way, each B-2 bomber cost $2.1 billion. That's right, you heard me right, $2.1 billion per aircraft, okay? Yep. Only has a crew of 2. And it carries both conventional and nuclear weapons. They call it stealth because it has the capability, in most cases, of being undetected. In other words, it can come into another nation's airspace and bomb the daylights out of anything without being detected. Of course, by the time the bombs begin to fall, well, then obviously people know they're being bombed. But it's too late then. My point is that, yeah, it's too late then. This is Barack Obama as an analogy. This is Mr. Obama, who talked all that nonsense about hope and change, and when he brought us, and we, you know, many of us, or some of us certainly knew it was going to be precisely what I'm about to say. Instead of hope and change, he brought us a rope and chains. And this is what the situation that we are in today. So, of course, you have increasing ethnic tension in this country. Of course, you have increasing violence of all kinds in this country. Of course, you have massive unemployment in this country. I'd love for some of these commentators on the corporate from the corporate stream media to take their butts down to Main Street and see how many businesses are closed. I don't care about the 1 or 2 that may have started up. What about the 15, 20, or 50 that closed? That's not going forward. That's ridiculous. Also, the fact that jobs for people in this country have been outsourced. Both the Democrats and the Republicans have been doing that and continue to do that. But Mr. Obama comes in talking about how he is the friend of the people. Well, well, well. With those kind of friends, who needs enemies? And this is precisely what we have to understand in this country, that Obama is what we call the missile or drone, predator drone missile president. And why do I say that? Because he used predator drone missiles to bomb North Africa. He is using predator drone missiles and other weapons, of course, speaking of weapons of mass destruction, to bomb and attack Pakistan, Afghanistan, and actually quite a few other nations that the corporate stream media is saying absolutely nothing about. That's also something that people should bear in mind. And when you look at the corporate stream media, if you're going to be serious, don't expect the truth, because that's the last thing you're going to get. You're not going to get the truth. So this is what we have now in the White House. And the point of the whole article, or this, and I try to keep my columns fairly short. So the point of this particular column was to try and urge people to critically think, to really think about the situation. Stop going for the hype. Obama is a brand, just like potato chips, just like IBM, just like any big company. In fact, he won an award for being the best brand in this country after he won the election.
That's right.
Isn't that amazing? He won the award for being the best brand, the best corporate brand. That should tell us something. And he continues to play the same games. He also pits people one against the other. He says, oh, he's everyone's president, but he opportunistically uses any situation, any incident that he can, that he feels he can use to divide people. Now, he talks a different talk, of course. You know, he talks a different talk, but don't worry about the talk. Watch his walk. In other words, pay attention to what he does. And that's what the corporate stream media doesn't tell us. So, essentially, Phil, that's what this particular column that's out this week, I emphasize the words of Frederick Douglass. You know, when we think about, I also refer to in the column the fact that not only is Obama supporting the Patriot Act, the extraordinary rendition, folks, if you don't know what extraordinary rendition is, in the nutshell, all it is, it means that people are kidnapped and tortured in other countries. But guess what, folks? There's more. He signed into law on New Year's Eve. He signed into law the draconian and blatantly anti-constitutional legislation known as the National Defense Authorization Act on New Year's Eve, okay, when no one was paying attention. What is this law now? It is an indefinite detention law. It says that U.S. citizens right here in this nation, can be charged, in fact, don't even have to be charged, but can be locked up or detained, i.e. the word detention, indefinitely, without charge, without trial, without judge, without jury, without even the right to legal defense. And guess what, folks? There's more. The government doesn't even have to tell you if your uncle, your aunt, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father is being held by them. Doesn't even have to tell you under this law. And guess who signed it? Who signed this into law? Why, Mr. Hope and Change himself, Barack Obama. These are the kinds of things that I refer to, which is why I refer to Obama as the stealth president, like the stealth bomber. And unfortunately, it's the people of this nation and the world who are the victims of this. I'm going to turn it back to you.
Well, thank you, Larry. And again, I do appreciate how you keep your columns relatively short, because what that does for me is it does give me time to think about what you wrote and go back, and that's one of the biggest problems we have right now is people do not think for themselves, and we've got to relearn that, and with the work you're doing, radio shows like this United We Win marathon this weekend, it really is great to see people who give a damn using this technology and writing columns and putting on their own radio show and telling others and doing the Facebooks and the Tweeters and all these things, and getting this information out there, because we are the answer, whether we like it or not. You mentioned the stealth bomber, and that is a tool of the military-industrial complex, which is the means that the bankers use to have their wars, which they profit tremendously on. And I want to say, you know, for folks who haven't heard you and I before, Larry, what were our criticism of Barack Obama is not to bash him. You know, we've got to remember, and as you wrote in your column, he too is a stealth bomber. Who's signing his paychecks? And I mean not the American people, the real pay. The millions and millions of dollars, the ones that Goldman Sachs, you mentioned this earlier, Larry, when we spoke, that they funded him to the tune of 3 times the amount that they funded McCain. You know, you gotta follow the money. So what the criticism of Barack Obama, the criticisms that we make, are to show how, in fact, he is a tool being used by the powers that are using us as cannon fodder, as basically slaves. I mean, you look at every American is in how much debt per person, and just basically we're resources for those that are using us. And what was it that George Bush said? You know, fool me once, shame on you. And then he couldn't figure out the second part of that. But basically is, fool me twice, it's shame on us. I think, you know, George Bush, he tried, you know, can't get fooled again, you know, but it really is on us. You know, what's happening to us is, it's on us, you know, and if we're ignorant to begin with, you know, and people like Larry in his column, or me on the corner handing out DVDs and flyers every week, and when we present this information and it's rejected, then it's shame on them, you know. And I think a big part of our efforts to wake people, our fellows up, you know, our fellow people, is that our own asses depend on it, you know, right? Because we have to have the people as a whole wake up in numbers big enough to put a stop to this. And you know, there was a paragraph in your column, Larry. Here we spoke about this the last time we were on air, and the times that we've spoken privately on the phone, that we're in 2012, and it's an election year, and over the past few years, people who considered themselves Democrats or Republicans or loyal to whatever label they attach themselves to, were starting to wander off the reservation and, you know, starting to think for themselves, you know. But just as we predicted, Larry, once we went into the new year and the election season's coming along, folks are retreating back to their respective reservations. And we had this thing here in Florida with the Trayvon Martin shooting, a young black man who was shot, and there's still a lot that we've still yet to see the day in court where it's investigated and tried. I'm not taking any sides on anything, but it seems to be being used to divide people, and and once again, that has been the tool that is used brilliantly on we the people. There's 300 million of us, and relatively a handful of rich old wrinkly white dudes, man, that run these banks, and we far outnumber them, but we argue amongst ourselves. We attach ourselves to a word, a label. Hi, my name is so and so. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. Even when you call into the supposedly nonpartisan C-SPAN in the morning, they've got three choices: Republican, Democrat, or Independent. And you have to choose one. And this is the problem. We've got to start thinking for ourselves and take back our own identities and realize we're being played, and if we're allowing ourselves to be played, then we are responsible. So you had a paragraph in there, Larry. At this point in time in history, there is no doubt that many black Americans, no matter what, will continue to support Barack Obama, for he is the most potent political stealth bomber and effective brand that the corrupt, hypocritical U.S. political system has yet created and spawned to perpetuate and reinvent itself. He is a creation of those that control us, just like a B-2 bomber. And so
exactly.
Not personalize it, this isn't a personal attack. He's just being what he was put there to be, and doing pretty damn good at it too.
Yeah, to the detriment of the people.
Yes.
He's doing a better job at hurting the people than George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan. This man has surpassed everyone when it comes to hurting the people, pimping the pain of the people, as I say. Pimping the pain of the people. He's done a better job at that. He's been very effective at that, more so than anyone prior to him. But go ahead.
Well, yes, and so I think a big stumbling block here is, for us, we've got to detach ourselves from personalizing this with Obama, and understand that he is being exactly what he's put there to be, and he's serving the people that put them there, and it's not us that put them there. I mean, if folks think we actually, whoever ends up in the White House is the result of us pulling the voting booth levers, man, you got to wake up and think again. Go out and watch what was that movie about black box voting, Hacking Democracy, or something like that. The powers that be put who they want in there, and you just look at the funding of the last election in 2008, Goldman Sachs or Wall Street, and you look at, yeah, man, and so it's on us. We can't keep blaming them, because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing if they're them. The change has got to come from us, and we've got to take responsibility to affect that change, and stop putting it on some well, I voted for him and he lied to me. Well, no kidding. That's what politicians do.
Right, right. What do they expect?
Right, so, fool me once, fool me twice. We are to the twice already. Twice, 3, 4, 5 times, This is on us, this change that we have to affect. And so I do want to say, it may sound like we're bashing Obama, but it's not personal. It's just pointing out how this tool is being used against us. And once that's pointed out and we still allow it to happen, because we want to believe what we want to believe instead of what's right in front of us, then shame on us. It's on us. It's not on Obama.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so.
Well, you know, the fact of the matter is, let's also be very clear and continue to be blunt. The fact of the matter is still, a lot of people said, oh, well, he's black. He's black. So what the hell was that supposed to mean, he's black? Since when has pigmentation had anything to do with critical thinking? Since when has pigmentation, color, had anything to do with character? Since when? Even Dr. King made it quite clear that a person, if we're going to judge a person, then do so not on the basis of color, but on the basis of character. And that's exactly the opposite of what people did in this nation. And of course, the corporate power structure, the corporate elite, the corporations who really control the media, who really control our lives and livelihoods, they knew this. The corporations knew this, which is why, for example, Goldman Sachs supported Obama massively, which is why Lockheed, which makes weapons, folks, it makes fighter jets, it makes missile components, that's where they get their trillions of dollars, okay? But anyway, the point is, because they wanted to go with the horse that they said, okay, we're going to get with that horse, because that horse will do our bidding, and he can do it better than the other horse. Okay? And so I don't even have time for personalizing Obama or anyone else. I didn't personalize McCain, and I did not support him. I didn't personalize. Politics is not about personalizing. The people struggle is about the people. Period. This is not about Obama. People need to jump off of that. It's not about Romney. It's not about McCain. It's not about whoever or whomever. It should be about the people. And when are we going to wake up and understand that we are the ones? We are the ones, as you've been saying repeatedly, Phil. We are the ones that this must be all about. So when people say, well, if they want to get off on the bashing Obama tip, well, that's on them too. Either they're going to deal with the reality of the matter, look at it for what it really is, and act accordingly, or they're going to live in la-la land, fantasy land. And fantasy land, folks, it's about to implode.
Yes, on all of us.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
All of us. You're right. Go ahead.
It's going to implode on all of us. So this whole effort of us trying to wake up our fellows, it's not just to be nice and wake them up and to do a good thing for them, man. It's to save all of our rear ends, because we have to have enough people awake and getting honest about this thing to save ourselves. And and it's not just the black community voting for Obama no matter what. It's also the Democrats. I had a friend over here. I told you on the phone earlier, Larry, that she came over. And she's active with the Democratic Party, and Obama is a war criminal by our own definition. However, the left only need apply anti-war movement still to this very day will not publicly apply the same standard of a public call for impeachment as they did for the Republican Bush for doing the same damn crimes, right? Well,
that's right.
I talked to her. She came over and started telling me about, some man who had cancer, and if it wasn't for Obama's health care thing, which is totally for the benefit of the insurance companies, more so than the people.
And the pharmaceuticals. The pharmaceuticals and insurance companies. But go ahead, Phil.
She said, well, he got his health care and instead of being dead. And I don't know the ins and out of it, but I said, do you know about the National Defense Authorization Act that was signed on New Year's Eve. Obama signed this thing which codifies, legalizes what you were talking about earlier, Larry, is that they basically can round us up and disappear us. They flat out
legally
race. And she says to me, she says, well, he had to give the Republicans something to get what he wants. And I just,
well, it's a good thing.
I just sit there.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you just want to scream, man, because there's that same loyalty. He's a Democrat, and no matter if he publicly codifies assassinating Americans on American streets without charge, trial, jury, or anything, it's still okay because he's a Democrat.
Right. Well, see, this is a good thing. It's a good thing, Phil. I guess I don't know if it was really a good thing. But had I been there, I know I wouldn't have been able to hold my tongue, especially when you hear people like her say compromise. He had to compromise with the Republicans, which is a bunch of poppycock anyway, because the Democrats and Republicans are really nothing more than Republicrats. They're symbiotically joined, and by that I mean they both drink from the same corporate trough, okay? But putting that aside, how dare she use the word compromise? Well, she had to compromise, to appease the Republicans. That's like saying a person goes out and blatantly and willfully commits murder, okay, and stands up in front of the judge and jury and says, well, Your Honor, I had to do that to appease my fellow murderers. That's not compromise. That's complicity.
It is, and see, this is what we're dealing with. This is how deep the programming has and the conditioning has gone, and again, part of us is we can complain about it and say the same thing over and over again, but the reality is wow, this is what we got to deal with. We got to get to work on these people, and again, it's to save our own ass. This is a war on the people, on all people. Like you say, Larry, what do you say? Black, white, red, brown, yellow people, everyday people,
everyday people. Right, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Phil, because that's what the war, so-called, and notice I'm saying so-called war on terror is. It's a war on terror. Unfortunately, we're the ones who are being terrorized, politically, economically, socially. So the war is on us, everyday people of all colors, just plain, ordinary, everyday people, economically, socially, and politically. So, but this other war on terror that they're talking about is a myth, made up and perpetuated by them to keep us confused, cowering, and manipulated.
Isn't that the truth? Well, and I've said this for years, Larry, and I still believe it's true. Until this country gets honest about 9/11, the big lie, and deals with it, we're going to continue to get what we get. I mean, here we are today, 10, 11 years later. There's enough evidence, if you stacked it up from here to the moon, that shows that, a guy in a beard in a cave did not pull off 9/11, and the government certainly had a hand in it, and it was the people that wanted the war, the Project for the New American Century, who've been advocating for these wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and going into the Northern Africa, and they were the ones who found themselves in the Junior Bush administration, and actually they were the ones on duty in the Departments of Defense and State on the morning of 9/11. They were the ones in charge of defending us. So it's so in your face. There's enough evidence. You could drive. There's so many holes in the government story. You could drive Building 7 itself through with plenty of room to spare, And I fault the anti-war movement for this, because they have refused to look at the 9/11 lie for 10 years. And it's the one sole and only reason given to have these wars. And they've been a gatekeeper as opposed to shining the light on it.
Well, they've been gatekeepers for this system. I don't care what they say. Okay, I come out of the left, and that is one of the reasons I am so very, very, very angry at the so-called left. As we were talking today, the left is left. In other words, they're not being honest. Okay, they're not being for real. They're being hypocrites. Okay, if it wasn't okay, which it was not, for Bush and Cheney to engage in their insanity, why is it okay for Barack Obama and Biden and the rest of those minions to engage in their insanity, not only against people of other countries, but against people right here in this country? People need to understand that this is all linked. They need to start connecting the dots. And whether it's 9/11, and yes, people roll their eyes up and look at you all strange, 9/11, you know, instead of saying, well, wait a minute, why? Let me check this out. Let me check that out. And when they begin to do that, then questions. Sometimes the best thing to have for people are good questions. But how can you have good questions in a society that does not want you to think? In order to have good questions, you have to think. You have to critically think. And instead, what we get is American Idol and Oprah Winfrey and all this other kind of insanity. And who's zooming voted? You know, who's zooming who today? And did you know? Gossip. Meanwhile, the people are being emaciated. You know?
And there comes a point in time, though, where we have to take responsibility, because what happens to us is our responsibility. You know, we can cry victim all we want, but that ain't going to change anything. That's just going to keep it coming. And you know that, Larry, all the stuff you've been through in your life. But you know, people choose to turn on that boob tube in the living room every night and watch these programs. You know, questioning something, reading something, investigating something, thinking. It all takes effort. You know, and I really believe, you know, as a society as a whole, we've gotten fat, stupid, and lazy, man.
There's a question that was asked in my chat room. Does Phil see an increase in interest in your Thursday night activism?
Oh, yes. Thank you. We've been out there every Thursday night for 7 years, handing out DVDs and flyers. And at first, when we were out there, this was, 2005, and, you know, we had things thrown at us. George Bush was president, you know, and again, if you criticized the war, you were against the troops, you know, even though many of us were veterans and military family members ourselves. That's the mindset. But over the years, I'd say we've pretty much saturated the Daytona Beach area with 9/11 Truth DVDs and stuff about, you know, the Downing Street memo, the lies that are used to keep these wars going, all kinds of stuff, chemtrails being sprayed in the sky, you know, poison being put in our water systems. We put it all out there. The USS Liberty attack in 1967 that Israel attacked our U.S. ship, and to this day it's not acknowledged, let alone brought to justice. So we do have people that actually get out of their cars and come and ask for the material, when years ago they used to attack us. I remember getting jumped from behind and thrown into the street. I mean, you know, it was pretty ugly. Yeah, I think in general, Dave, people want the truth at some level. They want to know the truth. I know that's contradictory to what I've been just talking about earlier about willful ignorance, but I think innately a person by nature does want to know the truth. And I recommend folks go to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Central Florida VFP. And you can see videos of us in action down on the corner. But you wrote something in the Angela Davis column on your Intrepid report, Larry, about history. You know, about our responsibility to pay attention to history, or else shame on us. We get same old. Did you want to say anything about it?
Yeah, very quickly. I began the article, the name of the piece in Intrepid Report, which is intrepidreport.com. The name of the piece, it's rather long, which I apologize for. It's entitled The Election Con, as in con game. The Election Con and Angela Davis, Ignoring History and Losing Their Minds. I began by quoting a woman by the name of Lucy Parsons, who said, "Never be deceived that the rich will allow you to vote away their wealth." End of quote. Of course, the rich, how did the rich become rich? Come on, let's be honest, folks. Let's be honest, they took it, okay?
Yes.
And they're not going to allow you to vote it away from them. They'll take you out if they can, but if we get the critical mass, then that becomes impossible for them to do. So I said that history is both a guide into the past and an important unfinished roadmap for the present and the future. We've got to know our histories, folks. It's not what we're being taught in schools, on television, etc., etc. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, I have another question for you, Larry.
Okay.
Who the hell are these Black Panthers who seem to be stirring up a race war? Those aren't the Black Panthers this gentleman marched with back in the 60s, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Let me be blunt. That's a very good question. I'm very, very glad you put it forward. They call themselves the so-called New Black Panthers, right? As far as the veterans of the original Black Panther Party are concerned, of which I am one, and I know many, many more, we hold them. Let's put it this way. I'm going to try to be diplomatic. Where are their breakfast programs? Where are their food programs? Where are their meals programs? Where are their seniors programs? Where are their programs for medicine, medical programs? They're nowhere because they're not about that. They're opportunists trying to take advantage of the pain of the people. They are paving the pain of the people. Okay? That's the bottom line. For anyone that wants to know about these so-called New Black Panthers, and I preface it by saying so-called, please go online, read, and just Google this. There is no New Black Panther Party. I repeat, Google this. There is no New Black Panther Party. That is an article that veterans of the original Black Panther Party wrote collectively. Read the article and you will see why we collectively say, don't be fooled again, folks. Don't be fooled again.
That's right. And one of the big stop sign, warning signs to me, Dave, was when they came out and put a publicly $10,000 bounty on the named shooter of Trayvon Martin. That right there is
that should have been a warning and a notification.
Yes.
But people are too stupid to understand that.
Well, we got to make them unstupid for our own survival. It's on us to unstupefy these people. And I'd like to say I'm right here down in Central Florida, in the area, and there are some folks out there on the radio on the big 810 AM WEUS in Orlando. There's a fella, Don Miller, the Don Miller Show. He's a black radio personality who's been around for decades, and he's come out and tried to get down into the black community and make sense of all this and say, don't be fooled. And I really want to commend that whole radio station and their programming, and especially Don Miller himself. And Larry was Larry was called in by the Don Miller Show to when they dealt with that Black Panther issue. Larry was a guest on their show a few weeks back.
It was great.
Yes. So there are people out there being responsible, and it's encouraging to see people step up and get involved, like those folks.
I cannot be silent.
Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. Everyone must play a part. Everyone's got to go to work. Work for peace. Spirit said work.
I cannot be